You made a great decision to join In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, because our special guest today, Eric Thomas, E.T., Pro Bowl cornerback with the Cincinnati Bengals, 9 years in the National Football League. Now he's coaching high school football, helping kids. He understands the game. He's got a lot of good things, a lot of good observations that he's going to impart to us about the Cincinnati Bengals, about what they've done in terms of their recent success, about the free agency signings, about the upcoming draft, about putting together another football team. E.T. knows football, and you'll find that out. Thanks for joining us in the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. Once again, coming to you from our outstanding studios. We got the best there is to get in terms of studios. First Star Logistics, top shelf in that regard as always. And we've got a top shelf guest. This guy, what an athlete. That's all I can say. What an athlete. Eric Thomas, E.T., speed, intelligence, strength, physicality. I mean, you name it. Just an incredible football player. Was Pro Bowl corner, played 9 years in the National Football League. On that back end, was a member of the Super Bowl XXIII Cincinnati Bengals football team. Just a heck of a football player, and even more so, one heck of a man. E.T., what's up, my man?
How you doing, big guy? How are you?
I'm hanging in there, there.
I appreciate all that love. It's a lot of love, man. It's a lot of love.
Oh, deserved now. Deserved. You player.
I appreciate it,
SWAT team, baby.
Yes, sir.
So I know you guys, Solly talks about it all the time. You guys still watch a lot of football together, don't you? I mean, you guys on the back end, you and Barney and Solly, you guys keep up with the game big time, don't you?
I mean, Dave, we all played for a long time. Both Solomon, Joe Kelly, Barney. You know, and so when you play for as long as we did, it's hard to get away from football. You know, it's just been such a part of our life, and we just love it. And the competitive nature of it, the scheming of it, watching the games and looking at what teams are doing up front or on the back end. It's sort of hard to get away from. As you know, I coach high school football as well, so I'm sort of still into it in that regard. But the love of football is what it's about, man. I think it's just so hard to get away from once you've been involved as long as we have. And I think for myself, I watch, so as I coach, I can stay up to what's going on. I can make sure I'm telling my guys things that I know, but also things that I'm learning about the new way of football.
I'll tell you, you were a great student of the game, a very, very intelligent guy. Got out of Tulane. That's a heck of a school. So I mean, and you had Dick LeBeau. Dick LeBeau as a mentor. I mean, there's nobody with any higher football IQ than Dick LeBeau. And so, how often do you catch yourself when you're coaching your high school players and teaching them techniques? You were big on technique, man. You were so good, so precise with your technique, and it was so important to you. How many times do you flash back saying, man, I remember LeBeau doing this exact same thing with me to me?
Well, as you know, I tell Solomon, we talk about this all the time, about how fortunate we were to be able to come to a team like the Bengals, even though at the time, they had the reputation, they didn't want to pay players and those kind of things. We sort of felt like we got lucky because of who we had coaching us.
Yeah.
As young players, Solomon, as you know, was a corner in college at University of Colorado. So to come here and in your rookie year, they all of a sudden say, hey, man, we want you to play free safety. That's an adjustment for him. And for myself, coming from a school where I was just sort of raw, I just went out there and just sort of played on my speed and just sort of relied on that so much. And coming here and I have a coach that's saying, hey, I love your speed, but I want to really make sure you tap into the technique of what you need to do, because your technique is what's going to make you a solid football player for years to come. And Dick was all about that, as you know. And so we got very fortunate in that regard that we had a coach that was sort of, and he hammered down on us about technique, and all of us, safeties, corners, he made all of us play technique, Lap. And when you play technique, you do it the right way in practice enough, it's going to carry over on the field. And we knew that, we understood that, and it really helped us. As far as me with my coaching, I know that some of the things that I've learned from Dick, some of the things that I learned from Pete Carroll, are still apply with pass coverage today, and so I still try to pass some of that along. I understand too that certain athletes can do certain things.
Right.
Everyone's different. The one thing that made Dick LeBeau so fantastic was that even though we all had different skill sets, I was probably faster than most. Louis Bills was probably a little more physical than most. He taught us to play within our strength and what we can do. And that, that's, I think the great coaches, that's what you have to do. You can't you can't expect everyone to do everything the same way, but you have to take what a guy does, take his strengths and what he does, and make sure he can apply those same techniques and it works for him. And so having Dick LeBeau was a blessing for me, I know for sure.
Yeah, it's amazing how coaches can have such an impact and an influence, and your influence in so many, young players now. A guy like you coaching these guys, man, they don't know how fortunate they are. And Lou Anarumo is a good example of it too. I mean, he'll get guys and make them better. I mean, that's his thing. He wants to make people better. And I can remember my rookie year, I had Bill Tiger Johnson was my first offensive line coach, and I came out of Syracuse. We were on an unbalanced line. We were in a all weight forward, run the football, never really pass protected, and came in and had to learn all that with Tiger. And I remember saying to him at the end of my rookie year, I said, Coach, I want to tell you something right now. You have made me a better football player than any coach I've ever had in my whole life. And I brought a tear to his eye, but it was true. I mean, I'm like, I was so appreciative of, man, the only reason I'm here is what you've done to help me get here. I mean, it was just one of those, you have an epiphany, like, man, this guy knew what he was doing and he could teach it so well,
It's funny you say that because I remember as a rookie, in my first couple of years, Solomon and I, we lived together because we needed to have some stability there in terms of having someone you can trust, make sure you got to practice every day, make sure he held you accountable. And so we had that, but Dick was the same way in that, when I think back, it's so many guys that he had this same influence that he had on me. And that I don't know if I would have turned out to be the player that I would have been coming into a very difficult league to play in if I didn't have someone who had first the belief in me, but willing to show me these things and really teach me. Because people don't know, you don't become a really good professional football player until you know what you're doing. You can't be good out there running around on ability. You can be the strongest player, you can be the fastest, but at some point you have to rely on your technique and the technique that's required for that position to be successful. And Dick just gave us that. And I think about even after I left here and went and played for other teams, I went and played for New York Jets, and I had Pete Carroll. And being there with Pete and watching film with him and him already telling me that a lot of the things that he was looking for, I had already possessed from a technique standpoint. And I knew that was Dick LeBeau. And so even when I left New York and went to the Broncos, it was the same thing. They knew what I was doing, because when I came there, I was already well versed in my technique. And again, that sort of goes back to we call him the great one, Dick LeBeau.
I'll tell you, man, you got that great foundation. That's what Tiger gave me, a foundation. Then you can build on it from there. There's no two ways about that. But man, when now the Cincinnati Bengals, like you talked about, the organization has had its ups and downs, its highs and lows. But right now, I'm telling you, ET, man, with Joe Burrow, I mean, Joe Burrow and Bengals is synonymous right now. You think Bengals, you think Joe Burrow, you think Joe Burrow, you think Bengals. Now it's like free agents want to come to Cincinnati. When guys get drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals, we're like, oh man, Bengals, awesome.
That's right.
Let's go. Let's roll. And they've done a pretty good job, of building something. The last couple of years here, it's been outstanding for sure. As an alum, I mean, how's that make you feel?
Oh, Dave, man, we've been sort of waiting, as you know.
Yeah.
I mean, and when I say waiting, it's not as if Marvin Lewis didn't give us something. Right. I think that people don't give Marvin Lewis enough credit, because he came in here at a time when the franchise was really at probably an all-time low, and he came in here and really raised the standards as far as everyone in the franchise. I think even people in the front office, he raised their expectations and their standards too. Sadly, for all the good teams he had, they never got over that hump, that proverbial playoff hump. And I think that had an effect in terms of why he wasn't able to continue on here. But I think what happens is that they brought in Zach. The first couple of years were rocky. But I think that's always going to be like that when you don't have the quarterback in that position. all of a sudden we get Joe Burrow and things change rather quickly. But here's a guy who has this, he's a difference maker. He cares only about winning. He cares only about being successful. And he's willing to say, hey, if you want to be on this ride, you better come with me. And if you're on it, we're going to all do it together. That's something that we haven't had around here. Carson couldn't galvanize a team like that. Andy Dalton, for him being such a good player, couldn't galvanize a team like that because he didn't have the ability to galvanize a team like that. Now here comes a guy who has all the ability. He has all the intangibles. He has all the fully understanding, and his intelligence is what I think guys bank on. Our quarterback is going to play the game right. It's a real luxury to go into a game knowing your quarterback is going to play the game right and be successful. And so when you see him do this kind of thing, and white players want to come here, it makes total sense. If I was a player, I want to come here and play with them too.
Yeah, I 100,000% agree with you. And the latest, greatest example of it, Orlando Brown. Who would have thunk that? I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Man, for them to pivot and get Orlando Brown under contract, they gave him a $31 million signing bonus, biggest ever to an offensive lineman. But it was for reasonable money. I mean, it was less than what the Ravens had offered him when he played out his franchise tag. And whatever the case may be, the Bengals get themselves a good deal to sign a guy like Orlando Brown, who's the only tackle in the NFL that's been to the last 4 Pro Bowls. No other tackle can claim that. 2 at right tackle, 2 at left tackle. Now he's going to play left tackle, and there's your bell cow. And they signed Cody Ford, and they're trying to build that brick wall to protect Joe Burrow. I mean, they have Orlando Brown, Super Bowl champion. They've got Ted Karras, 2-time Super Bowl champion. And then they've got at right guard, they've got a Super Bowl champion there as well. I mean, 3 of their 5 starters have won a Super Bowl. Not only gotten there, have won one. They know what it takes. ET, that stuff gets contagious, doesn't it?
It really does. And I tell you, it's funny you said they get me all excited. Stop, you get me too excited. But it is fantastic. But that's the Joe Burrow effect.
Yep.
That's the Joe Burrow effect. I guarantee you 5 years ago, they couldn't have signed a player like Orlando Brown. He wasn't going to come here. But Joe Burrow makes a guy like that come here, want to be here. Karras comes here because of Joe Burrow. So I think that this franchise is figuring out that, hey, in order for us to really be where we want to be as far as success in this league for the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be based on how the offensive line is built and how they can protect. All of our fortune is based on one player. And I think that when you look at around the league, you look at all the great teams with the great quarterbacks, they do the same thing. The investment has to be in your top guy, and that's the quarterback, because what happens, even with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, fantastic players, Lap, but in the next 10 years, only one of those guys is going to be here between those 3. And we know who that's going to be. And so they have to make sure that they shore that offensive line to take care of Joe Burrow. And I think if they can do that this year, and the left tackle signing is just huge, I think they're on their way.
I agree. They're getting it done up front. So lost both safeties. When Bates and Bell both went, man, I thought, boy, it's a dark day. And losing both of those guys. Then they rebound. They signed Nick Scott, who's in the very early infancy stages of what could be a really, really solid career. I mean, he's a kid that can really run, physical, sure tackler. So they signed him, and they're probably going to draft one pretty high. The cornerback that they signed, in his pro day, he tears his Achilles. I mean, he's a first-round pick.
He was a first-round pick. Yes, he was. Yeah.
He tears his Achilles, and he's had some injury history. But, I mean, this guy, when healthy, he's big, can cover. I mean, what do you think? What do you think of what they've done in free agency signing? They signed Irv Smith Jr. at tight end. I mean, they lose Hayden Hurst, and they signed Irv Smith Jr. They've seemed to kind of rebound and recover a little bit.
They really have. Obviously, Solly and I talk a lot, and the concern was losing both those safeties. We think Dax Hill's got a lot of ability. It's time for him to play now. He's had a rookie campaign to sit around and watch and learn, and now it's time for him to play. The Scott pickup is fantastic. Another experienced safety, younger than both the safeties that they just lost. Right. I think that I get that. I think that you go for youth. I think it's important. Signing that corner was huge. I think that if he can stay healthy, before that guy got hurt, he was projected as a middle to high first round draft pick.
Right.
if he continues to, if he gets himself back to that point, he can come in and be really good. I think the secondary has a chance to be really good. It comes down to how does Dax Hill and Scott play on the back end? Because what happened when you look at the defense over the last 3-4 years, the one thing that teams could not do, and that was throw the ball over their heads, couldn't get on top of their safeties. And when you have that insurance that and your safeties are always where they're supposed to be, it makes a big difference. They did this with last year. Think about it. They did it with a rookie corner and Eli Apple. A corner, an experienced corner, but not the most high quality corner. So now you think about it. If they can find a way to get a little better on the corners, draft another one. They have to draft another corner. I think that I trust Louis. I trust Louis. Louis to me sort of reminds me of Dick LeBeau. One thing about, and Saul and I have this conversation all the time. We always talking football. Louis set up just like Dick was. And I believe that all the best coordinators in the league always are set up from the back end to the front end. There's an understanding, particularly now in the new football NFL, that they're throwing the ball 70% of the time. You have to be set up from the secondary going forward, because that's how you're going to be able to keep yourself in ball games. You can't get in games if teams are allowed to. You find yourself in man-to-man because you have a defense coordinator who wants to put a subpar secondary in man-to-man and have them throw it over your head. That's a recipe to lose. But I think Louis understands that we have to have our back end tight, and then let our front end do it the way that they do it. You see, we don't blitz a lot. Rush four. I like that because the more you expose your secondary, particularly if they're not great, they're gonna get exposed. Even if you have a good secondary, Dave, and you expose them enough, they're gonna get hit. That's just the way it works. So I think Louis, with the pieces that he'll have, getting the linebacker back, I think the front's going to be better. I think they're going to. It looks like the Bengals are doing it. Free agents on the offense, shorter lineup, fill in the gaps, draft defense. Because I think if you win in this league, you have to win with a young defense. You can't win with a veteran defense. You can't, because as the games go on and these games get more tight, the fatigue starts to play in with older players, veteran players. The season gets long. You got 17 games now. So I like what they're doing. I think that they're going to build it on defense through the draft. To me, it's the way to do. When we got to the Super Bowl, the two pieces that they added coming in that year, or three pieces, was myself, Solomon, and Jason Buck. We were the younger players that sort of took us over the top. Got our secondary was already trending younger because they drafted David and Lewis the year before. But when they got us, those were the final pieces to round out the secondary to give us more youth back there. I think that they're going to do the same thing with the Bengals. It looks like that's what they're going to give Louis. He probably loves that because I think that he likes developing players. And when you get young players, you can mold them to what you want them to be. Look at Cam Taylor-Britt. Missed all the training camp, missed all everything. Guy comes in and balling. Yeah. That's hard to do, Dave. At that position, at corner, it's very, very difficult. So I think Louis likes the fact that if I can bring in younger players, it doesn't even matter where we draft them, bring them in and let us develop them. I think it seems to work best. I think that's what they're going for.
I agree 100,000%. And you mentioned signing Pratt, re-signing him. Logan Wilson and Pratt, those two backers that are on the field, whatever the package, they do that communicating, with the safeties and the middle guys in the back end. And the thing I want to ask you, as a former DB back there, ET, is when Dax Hill and Lou had him, exposed him to a myriad of things. When he was playing safety, he was in the box, he was deep. He played slot corner. He even played some outside corner with mixed results. But he actually played. He actually played all those spots. And I guess my question is, when he anchors at safety, how much will that help him? Yeah, I understand I have to do this because this is what the corner's doing, and I know what the corner's doing. Do you think there's any advantage there for it?
I think he's going to benefit once he locks in at one position. Safety is not like it used to be, Dave. Back when I played, Solomon was a free safety. David was a strong safety. Barney Bussey was a strong safety. We played Ricky Dixon at free safety. Well, the new NFL, as you know, is not like that. These players have to be more versatile. The safeties have to be able to swing front and back. There's no down safety all the time. There's no up safety all the time. And I think that's what made Von Bell and Jesse Bates so effective, because both of them played the same positions. Both of them came down and played down the box. Both of them played back, played the high safety. And I think Dax Hill, once he locks in and gets a chance to play one position, or when I say one position, just the safety's position, not just high or low, he's going to play both. I think he's going to be really good because he's physically, athletically, he's a much better athlete than both Jesse Bates and Von Bell. We've seen that. So we think that once he locks in, he can just learn just those two positions and how things are gonna come at him and the speed of it. I think he's gonna be a good player. I think hopefully when Scott comes in, Scott can grab him and teach him some things, because there's gonna be some things that he's not gonna know and not gonna be able to see, and Scott can tell him that because he's played for a Super Bowl team. He's played a lot of snaps. He started a lot of games. So I think that they could possibly be better at the safety position, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team. Hey there, everybody. I'm Dave Lapham, and we do a podcast called In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. And if you want to hit the like button when you're reserving any video, that'd be a good thing to do. And if you want to subscribe and not miss any videos, make sure you do that, because we are going to try to cover the Cincinnati Bengals every way that they can be covered.